Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So over the last couple of weeks, we have been hearing quite a bit about institutions, specifically institutional grade investments, institutional grade DeFi, and even institutional grade adoption. Now, one of the key things that we have been really kind of looking into is the mass adoption that will happen after institutions start pushing this tech. And it's going to be pushed through their own solutions. When we think about this actual technology and when we think about what it enables, we're not going to see XRP. We're not even going to see the XRP ledger. We're going to be seeing solutions that utilize this tech on the back end. So mass adoption, people won't even realize they're using this tech, but it will happen because of institutions. And in this video, I actually want to address a lot about that. I actually want to address a lot that's coming from the Ripple employees themselves, telling us what's actually going to be happening. But talking about Ripple employees, let's start off with this post here that I saw from Jack McDonald. And this is actually stablecoins at Ripple. Like clockwork, the January independent attestation for RLUSD is live. Some notable stats. RLUSD hit 7.35 billion in trading volume on the XRP ledger and Ethereum in the first 60 days. Now, this is crazy because that's significantly higher volume compared to many others and became available on Zero Hash and Revolut. RLUSD remains over-reserved. We hold 7 million more in reserves than total RLUSD supply, 130 million. We're seeing increasing inbound interest on using RLUSD for on-chain collateralization for tokenized assets. Lots of possibilities here. That's the big thing. Okay, increasing inbound interest on using RLUSD for on-chain collateralization for tokenized assets. Guys, who's the main players tokenizing right now? It's not retail. It's the institutional players. Asset management companies like BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton. Guys, this is a huge one. And I do expect to see a lot more updates regarding that because I'm sure that there will be. But let's actually move on to the institutional side of things a little bit more. Number one, DCENT. They actually just launched crypto trading for institutional clients for Stuttgart Digital. And you know what's crazy about this? We just saw a big announcement from DCENT back on February 24th that they were rolling out crypto trading and custody services for institutions built on Ripple custody. A clear sign of growing demand for institutional grade crypto custody solutions. So now we are starting to see the big picture. We're now starting to see these big banks launching crypto services for institutional clients. And this is all through Ripple custody. Ripple custody is enabling these big banks and these big institutional players to actually launch specific services. That's why I made a video just the other day regarding how custody is the big thing. That's like the number one focus that everyone should have, because it's the enabler of everything else after. Now, on top of this, let's actually look at a few things that we just witnessed over the last couple weeks. Number one, let's go back to January 28th, where Ripple and Ondo partnered up to bring OUSG, which is tokenized US treasuries, to the XRP ledger. Now, again, Ondo is a major institutional player. We're starting to see a lot more tokenization adoption for the XRP ledger that's enabling institutions in a big way. But it didn't stop there. Brasa Bank, again, another massive giant bank, the largest Brazilian FX bank, is launching their stablecoin on the XRP ledger. This is launching early 2025 for institutional clients. This was February 19th. The next, announcement that we saw from Ripple X was the 25th. And this was actually an interesting announcement because it was focused on institutional DeFi. For institutional DeFi to scale, it needs compliance-ready interoperable infrastructure. The XRP ledger delivers with the AMM, tokenized real-world assets, decentralized identity. Guys, institutional DeFi at scale is coming to the XRP ledger. Look at all of the announcements that we are seeing. Even this one from the 26th. Today, we are partnering with BDAX to expand institutional crypto custody in South Korea. Like, all of these moves happened in just the last month and a half. They're all major institutional moves. Even RLUSD is mainly for institutional usage. Which takes me to the next talking subject. The Ripple employees telling us that this is the key. The XRP ledger is the key. Let's start off with this one. This was back in January. Got posted by Andrew. We have mass adoption comes from institutional DeFi. Sovereigns, governments, central banks, financial institutions, all forming strategies around tokenization of RWAs and onboarding into respective on-chain finance platforms. These institutions are naturally going to spread their wings and deploy these assets across multiple blockchains at once, while also being able to trade them efficiently from their proprietary hybrid enterprise blockchain. Solutions like Omni come to mind when I hear this due to the bundling of chains feature, aka 24/7 accessibility to trade highly liquid assets across multiple chains. And here we actually have from XRP Ledger Apex of last year, where David Schwartz reiterated this, but I'm also going to play some up-to-date clips as well that support this argument as well. Check this out.
97% of institutional investors believe that tokenization is going to significantly affect asset management. These are people who they're not Bitcoin people, they're not crypto people, they're not blockchain people, they're not DeFi people, they're institutional investors. These are some of the most conservative people in the world, right? And they think that the technologies that we're building are going to revolutionize their industry. That is that bleed over into popular culture. The market value of tokenized US securities alone is $1.5 billion. This is a new space. So that is that number is probably different by the time I get off this stage. And of course, the growth of tokenized assets, $16 trillion forecast by 2030. I think that's probably going to be conservative. It just makes sense to get into these spaces. If DeFi spaces and tokenized spaces are where the investors are going to be or where the money is going to be, that's got to be where the assets are, right? The assets are going to chase the money.
97% of institutional investors believe that tokenization will revolutionize asset management, according to BNY Mellon survey. Now, let's go over here. This was from February 6th. Ondo Summit. Institutional adoption will happen before mass retail adoption. Big shout out to Cowboy Crypto. Check this one out.
There's high friction right now where people are poorly served. For almost any technology, when you're trying to figure out where you can get the traction, you look for people who are poorly served by the existing technology because you don't have to be perfect to get their business. You just have to be better. Exactly. And the worse it is, the less good you have to be better. And I think areas like real estate, like venture capital, private equity, things like that are just very poorly served. Another thing that works surprisingly is the opposite end. It's actually both ends work better than the middle. So on one end, people are very poorly served, there's very high friction. On the other end, where believe it or not, where people are very well served and there's very low friction, you can actually get traction because if you can save a very small amount of money, that's better. So for example, tokenized treasuries, you've heard a lot about tokenized treasuries. Those actually work pretty well right now. You might think, well, why would that be an area? And it's because of that. It's because if there's a $3 transaction cost and you can push that down to a fraction of a penny, that's actually a lot because the margins are so small. If I'm only making 2%, you're charging me a couple of basis points. If I can save you a couple of bucks, that actually does matter. So I think it's like the two ends. As far as like what people should focus on, if we're going to turn to the corner to mass adoption, user experience is going to be absolutely critical. The biggest problem with mass adoption is when the users have to understand the details of what they're doing. If you look at any technology that's gotten mass adoption, whether it's the internet, computers, cars, It's when people don't have to understand the details of the technology that it works the best. And so it's getting that user experience. Interoperability is a big part of that. If it's like my money's over here, but the thing I want to do is over here, and I really have to think about that, that's too much work.
It's not worth the energy and effort.
And that's probably why institutional adoption is going to happen before mass retail adoption, because institutional adoption, that the complexity is not as big of a blocker.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Now, on top of this, right, we also saw this clip towards the end of February, which was David Schwartz explains Ripple's current strategy to implement the necessary primitives on the XRP ledger for institutional DeFi that will lead to the inevitable consumer-facing retail use cases. Imagine a company issues stocks on chain and then is able to reward the stockholders with all the bells and whistles that blockchain offers, like rewards and incentives or even shareholder voting. Again, this is how we achieve mass adoption, and the XRP ledger and XRP are right there at the forefront of this.
If you're holding $5 million in tokenized treasuries, the amount of margin that the issuer is making is microscopic. Your yield is microscopic, the margins are microscopic. So we're going to bring enterprises in for dumb reasons, like it saves them money, it's more transparent. They're not going to understand that it's going to do the same thing that stablecoins do. People use stablecoins for use cases that they could never use any other asset for. Like you can't use a non-on-chain asset as collateral for some DeFi application. And what's going to happen is they're going to learn that by tokenizing these real-world assets, all of a sudden they're going to realize that like they can target brand new use cases, brand new applications, brand new user base. So the strategy is to add the features necessary to get that enterprise adoption that paves the way for mass retail adoption. We're not going to see mass retail adoption of DeFi in the next year or year and a half, because all of the DeFi applications are basically gambling. I mean, they're either recreational applications or gambling applications. If we want to take over finance, we need the really boring, I need a checking account, I need a savings account, I need a retirement account, I need a stock portfolio, I need sensible investments, I need the equivalent of certificates of deposit. We have to build all the boring stuff, and enterprises are what's going to make that possible. So the strategy is, over the next year and a half to 2 years, bring in the enterprises with these features around tokenized real. They're going to do it for dumb reasons. Some of them will be visionaries. Some of them will see this vision and they'll come to blockchains because they understand that it's like revolutionizing finance. But a lot of them will be here just because it's cheaper and faster and it works on weekends and it has these tiny little advantages that are better is better, right? If I go to you and I say I have something better, you don't have to believe me that it's going to change the world. It's enough for you that it's better. And then hopefully in a year and a half to 2 years, we can really turn that corner to sort of mass retail adoption.
So yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we have heard from David Schwartz in the past. The big focus here, and every single time that we hear, it's either David talking about this or some additional Ripple employee talking about this, the pathway to mass adoption is by embracing the institutional side, having everything in place for the institutions to actually, utilize this tech, then have them offer services on the blockchain for their users. And that's how we achieve mass adoption. It's a very simple, outlook, but it's very hard to achieve because we do need those necessities that these institutions need on the actual ledger, which is being implemented right now. And then last but not least, we also have Fiona Murray, right? Managing director at Ripple, has it spot on in this clip. It's XRP's utility in payments and growing trust from institutions that drive adoption. Big shout out to Subjective Views for this. Listen closely.
And Fiona, I would love to ask you, in your view, what is most key to enabling, widespread adoption among the institutional community?
I think Anton, you described the challenge of liquidity very well. If I take a step back before that, at Ripple, our belief is that you have to prove utility to really enable adoption, and you need trust. So those two things are the precursor to massive change. And if I look at utility for a moment, for us at Ripple, we started over 10 years ago with a challenge, and that was cross-border payments are broken.
Okay.
And everyone who sends money overseas has probably experienced this. Things have improved massively over the 10 years that we've been in business, but high cost, low transparency, very slow. And so that was the simple problem statement that we set out to solve. And by and large, we've proven that there's utility in crypto markets. So today, where I sit, we move billions of dollars of value through crypto, through stables and pay out in over 80 markets. So we're our own, eating our own dog food, our own best use case of where there's utility, there's adoption. And we're working with regulated financial institutions around the world to move that value. That second piece of trust cannot be underestimated. And we all saw what happened when FTX went down. And so that trust piece, it can be a little bit more nebulous, but again, sitting in my position where we're looking at moving billions of dollars of digital assets, what really matters is whether you have, number one, trusted counterparties and institutions to work with, or service providers, and number two, custody. So, whenever you're tokenizing an asset or moving an asset or touching customer funds, how do you keep that asset safe is one of the first questions to answer. And so we see custody, whether through custody service providers like ourselves who enable some of the world's largest banks to self-custody their digital assets, or indeed through the proliferation of more licensed custodians who are moving into the digital asset space, as really that trend is something that will mimic TradFi and provide safe, trusted institutions to operate with. And that unlocks a lot of interest from institutions who want to move into this space, but just don't have all of the players that they can trust and operate with.
Thank you.
And that's exactly where Ripple comes into play, right? Like, as we have, witnessed all of these massive, big problems in this space implode, like FTX or Luna, we constantly see Ripple moving in a completely different, way. When we think about it, even during the hype and speculation phase of this market, guess what Ripple was talking about? Guess who Ripple was meeting with? Banks, massive financial giants. Guys, when crypto was all about, let's escape, let's escape the whole traditional financial world and get away from the government control and this, that, whatever. When everyone was in that phase of the market, guess what Ripple was doing? Meeting with governments, meeting with central banks, talking to the big banks. That's why XRP has always been labeled the banker's coin. But guess what? Today, now, when we think about the space, when we think about everything that's been happening, it almost looks like Ripple was playing chess while the entire space was playing checkers. And this is exactly what sets XRP apart from everything else, is because now that XRP is in the position that it is, and Ripple is in the position that Ripple is in, it feels like institutional grade adoption and mass institutional grade adoption is about to happen on the XRP ledger in a big way. And I think that this is one of the most exciting things, because guess what this leads to? Mass retail adoption. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.